Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Grange Hill. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. Welcome to the next episode of Sausage on a Fork, and I am absolutely delighted to say that I have been joined for this episode by none other than Sean Maguire, who played Tegs Ratcliffe. Sean, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Brilliant to be talking to you after all this time, because I know we've had a bit of a...
I know, I'm sorry. I have been deferring and stuff. We've been travelling and, kids. And speaking of kids, right on cue, my little daughter's just wondered, hey, Baba. Yeah. So, my apologies for the procrastination, but I'm here. And I will answer as best as I can.
Honestly, I've had loads of people saying, when are you getting Tegs on? And I've been saying, I'm trying my hardest, but he's a busy fella. So anyway, Sean, what we'll do is we'll go right back to the start. And if you can tell us how you got into acting, how it all started for you.
I am the son of Michael and Kathleen Maguire, run an Irish dancing school, still to this day. My brothers and sisters have sort of taken it over largely now, but they taught Irish dancing in Essex and in London. And I'm one of 6 children, the second eldest of 6. And when there was just the 3 of us, the other 3 hadn't been born yet. My dad, being the decent fellow that he is, we would often do exhibitions, Irish dancing exhibitions, right. Sometimes at old people's homes, and he's one of those guys who's like, they could do the lift and stuff. And we'd be like, why are we doing this? Typical moaning kids, and we were doing an exhibition. I don't even remember where it was now because it's obviously 41 years ago, but or 42 years ago. We were doing an exhibition dancing somewhere, my brother and my sister and myself. And there was a woman called Peggy O'Farrell, I think it's Peggy O'Farrell. She was a theatrical agent, and she saw us dancing and said, "Oh, they're talented kids. Would you think they would want to do television or movies or that sort of thing?" Yeah. And my dad sort of said, "Well, yeah, sure, if it didn't interfere with their schoolwork, so to speak," which is ironic now thinking back to it. And so, I don't have any memory of this. This is just what's gone into the etched in stone. I don't recall any of it, but I just know because we've told this story many times. And so she signed us up, and I guess it can't have been too much later. I got an audition, which I don't remember. I presume I must have auditioned for it, for a film called Voyage Around My Father, which starred the late Sir Laurence Olivier, and Alan Bates and Jane Asher. Laurence Olivier. It was the life story of the writer John Mortimer, who wrote Rumpole of the Bailey and things like that. Very famous writer. And it was one of those Thames television films. It was actually the last film that Olivier ever made.
Right.
And I got the job, and I was cast as Alan Bates and Jane Asher's son. And I was on set. The few, snapshot memories that I have, because I was 5 years old, I remember being on set, and I remember seeing all of the attention and the cameras and everything. And, as one of 3 kids there, I was obviously an attention-seeking little kid. And so being on set and being in the center of it, I was like, this is kind of cool. And I remember my dad, I do remember one of those core memory things of my dad saying to me, "Man, you've got to be very well behaved. You're about to meet the greatest actor in the world."
Right.
And I was already a Star Wars fan at this point. And then this old fella comes out, Laurence Olivier. Of course, I didn't have a clue who he was. He was an old man at that point. And I remember thinking, this is the greatest actor in the world. Is this old man? But he was very sweet to me. He was very gentle and very sweet. And I was playing with him. And then I remember doing some scenes with Alan Bates where we're in the car and I'm in the back of the car and he's backing the car up and he says, "Is there anything behind me?" And I just have to say, "No, Dad," or something simple like that. And he says, "Is there anything behind me?" And I go, "Yeah, if you go back, you're going to hit all those cameramen and those people." And he got a big laugh from the crew. And I remember going, "What is this? What is this video? What is this intoxicating feeling of attention and applause, and there is the birth of an actor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so after that, it's strange, you know, like most of us in life, you have your kind of ups and your downs, and you change your mind about a lot of things, but it was like it was branded in my brain and in my soul. That's it. That's all I want to do. I know what I want to do. And I've had some rough days and some rough years, but with the exception of one or two occasions, and it was only fleeting, I never have deviated. I never wanted to do anything else. And so that was it. And so that was the start of it. And then there was a couple of other things. I think I did a commercial, and I did a couple of other things, which kind of kept me just enough, just a little bit every year, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I think I don't remember if I was 10. I think I was 10 when the audition came through for Grange Hill. And I, like 9.5 million people in the country at that time, 9.5 million children at the time, watched Grange Hill religiously. It scared me, intimidated me, because I was like, that's what big school's like. And then I was going to big school, so I was terrified that my school that I was going to was going to be like Grange Hill, where you get beaten up and, you know, mugged by Gripper or whatever it is. But I remember, again, like those core memories, I remember getting the script, and it had the Grange Hill emblem. And I think I joined just around when the emblem changed from that the old sign to the new purple and yellow kind of thing. And I remember walking around at my mum and dad's Irish dancing class holding the script. So like, it's not a big deal. It's just Grange Hill. I'm going in for an audition. Grange Hill. It's not a big deal. I'm like, you know, I was desperate for validation. To be thought of as something other than this miniature little pipsqueak that I was. And then these memories are a bit clearer because they are really etched in stone. My auntie Sheila, so it wasn't just me, it was me, my brother Darren, my cousin Mark, and my cousin Edward were all sent for the audition. My mum and dad were teaching. So my auntie Sheila took me, and in the car on the way there, obviously I'm like clutching the script, like, this is everything. I want this so bad. And my cousin Mark, who's one of my best friends, he went on to be my tour manager when I did the music and everything. We're still best mates to this day. And my brother Darren and my cousin Edward. And my cousin Mark went, listen, don't get upset if you don't get it, you know, because you are a bit small. And I was like, yeah, I am a bit small, I guess, you know, I guess who am I kidding myself? And then we got to Elstree and we walked into the reception area, and Anita Dobson, because Jill and Eastenders shot at the studio as the Top of the Pops. I spent most of my life at Elstree, my young life at Elstree. And Anita Dobson was there. And, you know, it may as well have been Beyonce or Lady Gaga. To be honest, I couldn't give a shit about Beyonce, but, you know, she was so famous because EastEnders was getting 27, 28 million viewers. EastEnders was the biggest thing in the country at the time. And we were like, oh my God, that's us. We had to go, we met her and we asked for her autograph. She was incredibly sweet and very well spoken, which was another like, oh, she doesn't speak like she does on the show. Oh, that's interesting. And that also put a thing in my head, because my dad was very, he really stressed that we should try to speak well, even though we were from alphabetics and everyone was like, all right, mate, all right. He's like, don't talk like that. And to this day, I find, you know, I love accents. I you know, most of my friends are from London and Cockney, and, you know, and I love all dialects. But my dad was very, very serious about speak well, speak properly. It's an identification of who you are and your intelligence, and that really landed. And so I spoke relatively well, but then I remember thinking after meeting her, oh, Tegs should probably be more like kind of, I mean, Tegs was very much like I spoke, but I just roughed it up a little bit. Yeah. To make him more, because I thought he wouldn't speak like I speak. He would speak a little bit more like, yeah, well, whatever, you know. Yeah. Little geezer, you know. And it was a neat meeting Anita Dobson that really kind of made me go, oh, maybe I should do something. And again, that was, you know, thinking back now, that they're the first times that I started to apply the idea of character and playing something other than myself, and all of that. And so had the audition, and I remember meeting Ron Smedley, who's a lovely, lovely man, and Albert Barber, and Lee Jackson, and oh God, what's his name? Famous director.
Anthony Minghella.
Anthony Minghella. They were all in the room. Now, obviously, I didn't know. They were just white men in suits to me. I just knew that these were the guys that I had to impress. And I came in. I think I dropped a line or two because I was nervous. But I had this little kind of, whatever. You know, I'm tough. I'm not scared of you. And of course, just never in my wildest dreams thought that it would happen. And then, you know, the rest is.
I mean, some of your auditions we actually saw before you were in Grange Hill, because you were making that Grange Hill behind the scenes program.
That's right. Right.
And I to this day, I'll be honest, I watched it the other day in preparation for this. It was strange because you just said about dropping lines, and they've used that in the program, and I just thought, because
was that in the thing? Because I remember seeing that years ago, but I haven't seen it.
Like you sort of stuck, and I just thought surely they could have used something else or another bit there if he's auditioning to them fellas, like. Well,
maybe showing that is sort of showing that the kid that ended up getting it didn't walk in ready-made. Do you know what I mean? And again, I was unlikely casting. You know, I was so small, and I was up against Lee McDonald's brother. Also was going for that role. We were like, well, he's Zamo's brother. Of course he's going to get the job. Do you know what I mean? Zamo was an icon of the show. Hey, baby girl. And so I think it's also that thing of, you know, if you hold on too tight, you're not going to get it. But there was something about me kind of going, oh, who am I kidding?
Yeah.
And then you kind of let go. And then the real you kind of comes out a little bit. And I mean, listen, I still to this day don't really know why that happened or how it happened. I just feel incredibly lucky that it did, because it was definitely the start of this 41-year journey that I've been on, you know. I mean, it's the proper start. And I learned, because when I was at Grange Hill, I think I've been there about a year or something, and nearly every kid, I don't really remember anybody else. I was the only kid that went to a normal comprehensive.
Right,
that I remember. Every other kid, I mean, maybe not the older ones, but all the kids that were in my year all went to Italia Conti, Sylvia Young, Barbara Speake, all these different schools. And my dad, I remember my dad saying, do you want to go to a drama school? Do you think that would be better? And I was like, no, I don't think so, because my dad was very emphasized the importance of education. He kept saying, listen, if you want to be an actor, there are no great actors that are dumb. None. If you want to be a good actor, you have to be educated. You have to be smart. You have to be well read. And by their own admittance, the other kids would sort of say, no, we don't do any schoolwork. It's just all playing and stuff. And I was like, I'm playing here at Grange Hill. I think I should probably be trying to get my book smarts up. And, you know, I went to just a very sort of typical comprehensive school. But the importance of education was really imposed upon me, and I could see the importance of it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's us actually in that Grange Hill behind the scenes program. That comes across in that, because they ask you a question about your education, and you actually say, you know, well, you need an education.
Did I?
Yeah.
So really? That's my dad talking through me, obviously.
Yeah. So, what was it like joining the program then? What was it like when you got there and you met all these people?
The first, again, it's all kind of a bit of a blur now in my memory, but I remember, you know, the first couple of days and weeks, I was just so enamored by John Alford and George Christopher. Like Robbie and Ziggy were, you know, it's like hanging out with Premiership footballers. They were so cool, and so I was just like, whoa. And I remember to this day, I guess it must have been my first or second day or something, going to John Alford and saying, can I have your autograph, please? And he was like, what? Don't need me autograph. And I was like, he said, you're on the show now. And I was like, yeah, I know, but just sign it anyway, because this thing's probably not going to last. So better than I just get it. Better to have it and not need it than need it not have it. Know what I mean, John? And I got George's and everyone, and they were really good to me. They
Yeah.
were really, I mean, John Drummond scared me a little bit because he was very kind of theatrical and comical and very, very funny guy.
Yeah.
But it was like real school. I was intimidated by the cool kids and intimidated by the big kids. And, you know, I was obviously this big. And the people that were in my year, Rachel Roberts, Paul Adams, Darren Cujo, Suzanne and Sonia. God, the names are escaping me now. Forgive me.
Lynn Radford, Sonia Cairns.
Lynn Radford. And I'm getting their real names and their stage names. Lynn Radford. And there was one other girl who was lovely. Who was Sonia? No.
Sonia Cairns.
Sonia Cairns.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. God. Yeah. Well, we wouldn't know. And they were all lovely. Although Darren Cujo used to beat me up a little bit.
Right.
I was a bit like, I don't like him. He keeps hitting me, and I'm not strong enough to hit him back. And so the chaperones were like our mothers, and they were very sweet to me. And I think because I was the size of Tom Thumb, I think they kind of like, come here, little one, and they kind of put an arm around me. But the older guys were great, and especially John Alford and George Christopher. I remember kind of thinking, I can't believe I know them now.
Yeah.
Like it's like when the cool kids at school say hi to you, like they said hi to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't. So that really took the emphasis off the idea that I was going to go on screen in front of 9.5 million people. And so that really was a healthy, good thing, because I don't think it would have been useful for me to have thought too much about the implications of what was coming next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a lot. There was a lot going on all at once in my young mind.
Because you joined in, well, you would have been filming in 87. It went on air in 88. So it was still quite, and I mean, it was still a massive program, wasn't it? You know, you had the Just Say No was only like, 18 months before.
Yeah, and I remember watching that on Newsround and stuff like that. I mean, Grange Hill was a phenomenon. I mean,
yeah,
10 odd million people. I just saw in Variety the other day, Game of Thrones got 9.99 million. Big hit, and I'm like, in America with 350 million people, you got 10 million. Grange Hill was getting that twice a week. I mean, this pre-internet, pre-Sky, pre-cable, It was, you had your 4 channel. I don't even know if Channel 4 was probably in its infancy then.
Yeah.
So, you came up from school and you put BBC One on, and that was it. So it's funny to think how television and how audience shares have changed since then. But you forget that the country's population now is around 55, 60 million in the UK. So it's probably around 55 million or something like that. So you're talking almost 1 in 5. Yeah. Is watching you twice a week. And when you think about those numbers, and when joining Eastenders, 25, 26 million people, you're talking about, 1 in 3-ish you're in the living room twice a week. And that was a big lesson for me about becoming recognizable. There's a difference between, I think, being famous, like a Barack Obama or, David Beckham, or somebody who's just globally famous and so on. And then there's just people that are very, very recognizable because they're in your living room. When people say you're famous, I'm like, no, not really. Recognizable is different to me than being famous.
Right, okay.
Famous is when you go to the Tibet or something, like a Brad Pitt, or Tom Cruise is a good example. Yeah. There's nowhere on the planet where Tom could go where people don't know who Tom Cruise is. But with Grange Hill and then certainly EastEnders, you just get very recognizable, which is very much a double-edged sword.
Right.
Be careful what you wish for. So I was like, I want to be famous. I want to be known by everyone. And then once you are, you're like, oh, this is not great.
Now, what was the public reaction like to Tegs?
Well, the weird thing was, it was like I was in a vacuum. I don't really remember. I remember I started to get recognised. It largely negative was what it was. School was a nightmare. I felt like I had my mates who are still my mates to this day, who stuck up for me and were there for me. Mainly my older brother and his year. But I had my best pals, and they, bless them, they stuck it out with me. But it was not good. It was largely disliked, largely hated. The students were bad. The teachers were worse.
Wow, really?
I had a really negative experience because they just thought, oh yeah, I mean all the time, oh look everyone, look who has a question, Mr. Television, blah blah blah. I mean the things
Wow.
they did were so like borders on child abuse, you know. I can't believe that some of them did what they did. There were one or two that were nice and nurturing, but largely it was a horrible experience. And so I felt the negativity far more than the positivity. And it was only when I got much, much older, I remember years and years later, one of the first people that said it to me, and I was like, what? Was Matt Lucas, who's now a good friend. The first time we met, he went, oh my God, it's Tegs Ratcliffe. And I was like, he was like, oh my God, I loved you. And I was like, what? You're Matt Lucas? What? Then it seemed to just sort of unfold that people were like, Tegs was great. Tegs was a hero. Tegs was a legend. And I was like, what? I thought I was hated. You know, I mean, I knew that sort of some young girls liked me because I started getting fan mail, and that was a new experience. So I thought some people liked me, but largely my big takeaway was I'm just that little git off the telly. You know what I mean? And so it was not anything that would have kind of gone to my head. It was quite the opposite.
Yeah. When we first met Tegs, obviously he was a pupil with a criminal record, shoplifting and burglary and joyriding. And when Grange Hill had those types of characters before, they'd always been horrible. He'd always been like the bully and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought it was quite,
How can you bully anyone when you're 2 foot? Look, they're like, he's a baddie, but you can't bully anyone because he's the size of a smurf.
Looking back at it, I think that was quite clever because he had that about him, but he was such a likable kid, wasn't he? He was such a likable character, Tegs, I thought. And I thought that was quite clever.
It's difficult for me. I think what it was he was a tough on the exterior, but deep down desperately needed to be loved and desperately needed, he didn't really have parents. He had a wayward criminal brother. And, it's only looking back at it now that you kind of go, oh, they were quite smart in the way that they did it.
Yeah.
Now, I was sort of dealing with just day to day. I'd get the script, learn the script, go shoot the show, and then watch the show and move on. And I didn't really have, I wasn't old enough or intelligent enough to understand what was happening, really. But what they've done is they've created this little tough kind of nut on the outside, but inside he was just this little boy that desperately needed to be loved and hugged and bathed and clothes cleaned and stuff like that. And so I just didn't realize what they were doing, or I didn't realize what was happening. And I didn't realize until a little bit later that I was playing a character that spoke to a lot of children that were going through this in real life. I mean, I was very lucky. I have a loving mother and father who are great, and a great set of siblings and stuff. So my life couldn't have been more different. But it was a little bit later when I left the show and I did some other stuff like Dodgems and stuff. I played a series of kids in care homes and hardline, and I did all of this stuff. I just was clearly the little street urchin that had no loving parents because I was typecast for a long time. But then I met kids in care homes, and I went and met kids in foster care and stuff like that. And I'll never forget, because it was the first time I'd ever seen it, I went into this foster care home to speak to kids before I shot something called Dodgems. And in this foster kids' room, there were posters of me on the wall. And I was like, what? And they're like, you're a hero, And I was like, I couldn't, it just didn't compute to me. It was too big a thought to understand for my young mind. But what it was they saw a kid that represented them on screen, and he appeared to be winning. He appeared to be kind of getting away with it. And I didn't, the writers must have understood that they were writing a kid that would speak to these children. All the kids that were watching the show, that were probably sitting in an empty house. There's no mum or dad there. Maybe they were off working 2 jobs. Maybe their dad had left the mum, or single home, broken home, and that was completely something that I was utterly unaware of at the time. And then later on, when I realised that, I was like, oh, it's it meant something.
I mean, we did meet Tegs's family, and obviously Tegs's dad was played by an absolute legend.
Terrifying. He was scary to me on the day. Normally older actors, you know, I've worked with kids, I've played a lot of movies and shows with kids now, and I make an absolute point of picking them up and playing with them and doing all this. Alan Ford was terrifying to me. Never really spoke much. He was like that. All right, what? I've been doing. And I just remember being just absolutely scared out of my wits by him.
Because Alan Ford, obviously, famously, it was bricked up in Snatch.
And he scared the hell out of me in Snatch.
And I mean, everything you see Alan Ford in, he plays that part and he plays it brilliantly. And I want to know if he was really like that. And obviously, you had the experience that he was.
Well, I don't really remember much. I only remember shooting with him once. I don't know if he appeared in the show more than once, but I only have one memory.
He wasn't in it. He was in it a few times, but not a lot.
I don't really remember having much to do with him. Certainly not. Don't have any memories of talking off camera or anything. I mean, he's probably like, "What am I doing? I'm doing some Poxy Kid show." Bollocks, all right, I'll do the scene now. I'm off smoking. You know?
Yeah.
So or maybe he was just smart enough to know I've got to intimidate this kid or whatever it was. I don't know. I've never met the man since. I mean, it was. He was a sort of tragic kid, really. Yeah. And I, when you're a kid, you kind of want cool storylines. I wanted to be good at football and all of this stuff. So, like, when they started making me smelly and dirty, and I do remember vividly Ron Smedley saying, "Oh, guess what? You've got a scene in the bath next week." And I was like, "Wait, what? Nobody's ever been in the bath on Grange Hill. You're not serious. I'm not going to have to strip down and get in the bath in front of millions of people, much less the studio, the cameramen, everything." I was so just mortified. I just couldn't believe that they were giving me these storylines, and I was embarrassed and didn't want them. But now, looking back, I mean, God, it was sort of amazing, really. I mean, if they had not given storylines, Tegs wouldn't have become the character that he went on to become.
Obviously, you've just mentioned the being smelly and the scene in the bath and all that, and obviously in those scenes. And in nearly most of your scenes, you got to work with Rachel Roberts. What was it like? What was Rachel like?
Well, obviously, I don't know if it was transparent, but there was no acting. I mean, I had a huge crush on her. I had an enormous crush on her. I fancied her rotten. And of course, she was tall and blonde and beautiful. And I was, just squeak. And so it was a bit, I don't know if the writers saw that or if they... I don't know if they conjured it or art imitated life or vice versa, but I just had this crush on her, and it was never going to happen. Do you know what I mean? I mean, when I joined Grange Hill, that was the age when I started to go, "Ooh, girls.
Right.
Girls are cool." Now, if I can just figure out how to talk to them. And the thing was, because I was so small, everyone was like, "Oh, you're so cute, you're so cute." And I was like, "Stop it, I don't want to be cute, I want to be cool. I want to be tough and cool." And they're like, "Oh, he's adorable." And I was like, "No, stop that."
Yeah.
And I think she just looked at me like, "Oh, bless him."
Did you audition together?
No, I don't think so. I don't recall audition. I don't even remember meeting her for the first time. I don't really have any memories of the beginning. There's just those bits that I've said. They're the ones that are like the core memories.
I was just asking because obviously the dynamic and the chemistry between the two of you was great.
Again, chemistry was not something that I was aware of.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? All of these things that you learn later on, having good chemistry, all that sort of stuff. It was just, I was literally learn these words, say these words, move on. Yeah. I didn't really think much. And then also, I guess I did have this big crush on her. And I think that probably bled through a little bit.
Right.
And she obviously, they wrote her like, she was sort of more like a big sister to me than a girlfriend. And I don't really remember how it ended up, but we never got together, I don't think.
There was nothing ever happened. You were always sort of just really good mates.
Yeah. Which is kind of sweet now that I think about it, because there's such a desire to have two people on a show that you've written towards for years, you kind of almost have to give the audience that kiss or something. But in real life, it doesn't always happen. And I think, and in real life, it never happened for us. I mean, I had this big crush on her, and I remember leaving the show going, damn it.
Yeah.
So, but she was always very sweet to me, and she was always a great girl. She was always lovely. In fact, we haven't seen each other since I left the show. I don't think we've ever met each other, and I'd love to see her maybe when I'm back in London. I'm so frustrated because there's been a couple of times when there's been a Grange Hill reunion, and I'm 6,500 miles away. I'd love to fly back for it. I've got kids and responsibilities and stuff, so it's hard. But I hope they do another one sometime in the future, because I would love to see a lot of them. I mean, I've seen and I've spoken to John Alford, and I've spoken to George Christopher. I've spoken to a few people, but no, I'd love to have a reunion with them all.
Cool. So you were on the program for just around about 4 years, give or take a bit. Do you have any memories of any favourite storylines or any favourite episodes that you were involved in?
The first things that come to mind were, I loved the fact that I got to do some kind of scallywag stuff where, like, climbing through air vents and screwing things and stealing things and jumping off walls and shimmying up drain pipes and stuff. Because as a little boy, you're like, I can do anything. I can do that stuff. You know what I mean? When you're a kid, you're like, let me do my own stunts. And all of that sort of thing. And the stuff where they brought in the American football storyline with Waller and stuff, and me being this little kid kind of getting one over on them, that I remember that feeling kind of cool. And I remember thinking, because I was a huge Michael J. Fox fan, which is why my collars were always turned up. I wanted to be Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future, so I was emulating. I was trying to copy Michael J. Fox a lot, and so even the way I was sort of running and stuff, I would because I'd watch Back to the Future and I'd be like, okay, he runs like that, okay, I'll do that, and so a lot of the time it was any excuse where I could get to be Marty McFly in Grange Hill was what I was trying to do. And I don't know if anybody else ever spotted that, but that's definitely what I was trying to do, So I remember those storylines being really cool. I remember the bath being mortifying. I remember there was an episode where I had to have my face painted, and I was like, oh, no. Because I've never been one of those kids that liked face painting or anything like that. I'm like, nah. And I remember having to walk around all day with this stupid tiger face on. But no, I mean, not really. It's such a long time ago. It's only talking to you that a lot of these memories are kind of coming back to me now,
I always ask this question. What was the relationship then between the kids and the adults like? Because you were on the program with some big names there, the likes of Michael Sheard and Anna Quayle and obviously Gwyneth Powell and all these people. What was the relationship like?
Great. They were largely great. Michael Sheard was obviously a legend and largely terrifying. Mr. Bronson to me before I joined the show. It's very hard to unsee him, Mr. Bronson, and he fabulous actor and a great guy, but scary. He kind of kept up that little bit of scariness in a way, not because he wasn't nice. He was a lovely man and a wonderful actor, but all of the teachers, one that passed away recently, Scottish actor,
Nicholas Donnelly,
lovely man. Gwyneth, who looked very much like my mum, which was very funny, because me and her on screen together, it looked like my mum was telling me. Very, very sweet. Anna Quayle, lovely, because I was like, "You're in Chi Bang Bang. You're in Hard Day's Night. Oh my God, you spoke to John Lennon," because I'm the biggest fan in the world, and John Lennon is my absolute hero. And So I would just every day say, when you spoke to John, like, what did he say? Like, what did he smell like? What did he? How did he? What did you? You know?
Yeah.
Like, I've told you everything I can tell you. I was like, tell me again, because you're the closest thing I'll ever get to touching somebody who's touched John Lennon.
Yeah.
But they were great. I mean, you know, we must have been such a bunch of little shits. So, and they were all adult actors. They must have thought, God, why can't I get a grown-up job? But they were really great. I don't have any negative memories about any of them. I remember tutoring in real life at the studio. That was hard. That was really laborious and boring because you're just in a room, just cracking books for 3 hours. I hated it. But the teachers that played the teachers, the actors that played the teachers were great. They were really nice people.
Brilliant. So I just going through a few of the things that Tegs did, and obviously he did have this criminal record, and one of the things he did was he kind of used that.
Allegedly, they can't prove nothing.
He used that to do nice things for people. You know, when, like, you mentioned Mauler before, and there's a bit where Mr. Robson's cycle helmet turned up in Mauler's locker, and it's never actually said, but Tegs has got this little knowing smirk on his face that, yeah, I did that.
Oh my God, yeah. Wow. Yeah. You know what? I think in a weird way, they were the first semblances of Robin Hood in me.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I was Robin from the rich to give to the Robson.
You know, and like when Justine had been nice to him, and he, a pair of earrings turned up in a locker that there's no way Tegs could have afforded. But just little things like that. And then a lot of it was about, you said about, the fact that he just wants to be loved, and we did sort of see like him living in a foster home and living in with his mum, going and staying with his mum and stuff. But there's one thing I like about when he goes to the foster home, he's talking to his social worker, and there's a scene where he's talking. She said, "What's it like?" He said, "Well, it's all right, but it's not. They've decorated my room, but they've put all football posters up. I hate football." And he says something, and I really hate Liverpool. And I just thought, yes, good lads, good lad, because I'm a massive Everton supporter. So
right. I was going to say, well, that must have really upset you.
No,
but then, of course,
not at all.
I don't remember that. I didn't realise that. I didn't know that Tegs didn't like football.
I hate football, but yeah, I just and like that was. I thought, yeah, he's all right by me.
I suppose they had seen from Liverpool Scouser.
Yeah,
they had to address the blue of Merseyside. They're like, hang on a second, we're losing half of Liverpool. You better get the Evertonians in.
So yeah, and then there was other things that obviously in the thing in your third series, Darren Cudjoe played Clark had left by this point. Yeah, so Tegs and Matthew became sort of a bit more friendly and a bit more pally because Justine was growing up and she was seeing other lads and stuff. And then there's a thing with Matthew. Matthew goes on trial for arson, and you see Tegs is made up because Tegs has got someone to talk to about that, because there's one of his mates is going through the same things, and he's like, wow, you're in loads of trouble, and he's quite impressed by the fact as well, like, and I love that. I absolutely love that. And
I remember, Paul, who's a lovely guy, and we were really, really good friends. Sadly, he's lost touch. I'd love to. If he sees this, Paul, if you see this, please contact me because I'd love to catch up. I remember me and him used to get the train home together, and I do remember there being a storyline where, because he came from sort of more of a posh family, and then he kind of hit the rough side of it. Now that you say it, it's kind of coming back to me.
Yeah. And then we'll just move on just a little bit then. Series 14, that was your fourth year at Grange Hill. And we're hit with this massive bombshell that Tegs is going to leave. And like, for me as a fan, I mean, I was a massive Tegs fan. And I was like 15, but I was gutted that he was leaving. Like, so whose decision was that then that you were going to leave?
It was mine.
Right.
It was my decision. I mean, looking back on it now, I can't quite believe that I did it. But again, my mum and dad playing a massive part in it. It was getting closer to GCSE time. and I was missing so much of my school life. My grades were suffering, and my dad said, "You know what? I think you should leave." And I was like, "What? Are you crazy? I'm living the dream, man." He was like, "Yeah, but listen, if you want to be an actor, you're never going to make it unless you get your education. And if you fail your exams," he said, "Look, everybody that's left Grange Hill, a couple of them have gone to Eastenders. That's it. That's it." He said, "There's no future in this if you see it all the way to the end." And my dad, to this day, is a huge influence on me and a very wise man. And I'm kind of now thinking about it, I'm like, I can't believe he kind of convinced me that it was the right thing to do. But it clearly was, because it was unheard of. I mean, nobody left Grange Hill. You stay till the bitter end, you know. But the irony of it was that I left, which I think probably shocked a lot of people. I mean, the producers and the fellow castmates are like, "What does matey think he's doing?" And it was purely, it wasn't that it was a career move or anything like that. I wasn't that arrogant that I would thought that I was going to work ever again. But I just thought, my dad's right. If I don't get an education, I was always looking to the future. And so I left. And again, I remember my last day being very, very sad. I remember we used to take Polaroids. This is back before digital cameras. We take continuity Polaroids, and there were all these Polaroids on the makeup door of funny things, embarrassing things, silly, you know, when my dad cut my hair and cut my sideburns too short, you know, all of these things. And they'd taken them all down and put them in a book for me, gave them to me, and they recorded it on camera, and they gave me the tape, giving me it. And I was very emotional about it, and don't really remember much else. To remember that was it. I left. And then I don't know what the time span between it was, but I left, and then this TV show called Dodgems came up, and it was basically playing a kid who's from a sort of broken home. Dad had accidentally killed mum, and I was starring in my own show. And that's when I started to think, oh, maybe this could be something. Maybe I could. But again, you have to remember, coming from where I come from, and the forces around me, like the chaperones and everything, would tell us so often, don't get ahead of yourself, don't get a big head, don't get your feet off the ground. Like, that was drilled into you. Like, arrogance was not permitted, lofty ideas and thinking, oh, I'm something. It was unheard of to leave the show rather than being asked to leave the show, because that was the looming sort of Damocles, you know. And so then to leave, and then it to sort of accidentally be like a career move, was just pure blind luck. I never would have assumed that would have happened. It was not strategized. It wasn't planned. It's all about leaving.
Because Dodgem, you've mentioned Dodgem there. It's quite a bleak program, wasn't it? I mean, I only saw it when it was first broadcast. I haven't seen it since, but I just remember it being really, really bleak. And of course, Lucy Speed was in it.
Who I still know today, and Hugh Bonneville, who's now very famous movie star. Hugh was one of those actors that taught me a very valuable lesson about how to treat young actors. He was so kind to me. He was so nice to me. And also Patrick Robinson was on that show, who went on to be in Casualty and other things. But Hugh was an enormous, had an enormous effect on me, because I was like, this guy's treating me like I'm an adult, because you're working adult hours, you're living in an adult professional sort of life, but he just treated me so kindly and so nice. And we are good friends to this day. You know, we've remained in touch, and he's one of those people, his success just makes me, you know, just so happy, because you could not meet a nicer, more decent guy, or somebody who deserves every ounce of success he's had. So, and he was in the doldrums for a long time. And then I remember seeing Notting Hill, and I was like, Hugh, oh my God, we sort of lost touch at that point. And I was like, oh my God, he's in a movie with Julia Roberts. This is amazing, you know. And one of those guys that you just hope and pray he's going to get what he gets, and he deserves every bit of it, and that's never changed.
Brilliant. Okay, so then after that, you did an episode of The Bill, but then famously, you walked the path that many people had walked from Grange Hill to Eastenders, and we met Aidan Brosnan, Irish footballer.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the Irish accent came easy with you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was just doing my dad. You know,
Yeah.
I was just trying to. I mean, I used to sort of, like all kids, man, get up those stairs, you. I'll football you to bed, kind of thing. So, I would do that, mocking my dad, kind of thing. And all my family in Ireland are, most of the 9 families, 7 of them are in Ireland and 2 are in London. So, we'd go to Ireland every year, and my mum and dad ran an Irish dancing school. I grew up in a very second-generation Irish area. So it, some people gave me a bit of grief about it. But again, this was pre-internet, there wasn't, if somebody wanted to insult you, they had to kind of come up and do it
to find you, yeah.
They did. And EastEnders was about the time when I started getting hit in the face a lot. And that was when I was like, oh, this fame thing, I'm getting a little lukewarm on it now. It really changed my perception of fame and what I wanted out of this game. Then it went from I want to be the most famous actor in the world and win an Oscar and all that to I just want to work. Yeah, I just want to work. If I can just work and I don't have to wait tables or work behind the bar or drive a taxi, which nothing wrong with that at all. But I used to, honestly, this is the truth. I would go to bed every night and I would fall asleep saying my prayers, going, please God, just let me be an actor. Please God, just let me work. I don't need all the fancy stuff. I don't have to be a millionaire. I don't have to this, but I would like to get to Hollywood, and I just let me work. That's all I wanted. My focus was incredibly singularly pointed in one direction, and it was always, I will get to Hollywood, and I will fulfill my dream, and I was relentless. I missed weddings, christenings, funerals, every kind of family occasion. There were times my family would go on holiday. I remember one time they went to Florida and I had to stay behind on my own because I was filming. Not literally on my own, I stayed with an auntie and uncle and stuff. But they were like, oh, we feel terrible. And I was like, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. I'm doing what I want. I'm doing what I love, And
then mid-90s, I've got to talk about this. You had a music career.
Did I?
How did that come about?
Honestly, it seems inconceivable to me. So after EastEnders, the press, as they do, like to make more of something than it is. So there's stories, rumor that I was getting more fan mail than anybody had ever got. It was all nonsense. I was getting a fair bit of mail, but it was, the story's not good unless it's the most, it's the biggest.
Oh, I get you, yeah.
So they ran away with this idea, and I was dubbed a heartthrob or whatever kind of nonsense, which I never really liked, even though I wanted to win the favour of girls. I was like, nah, heartthrobs, they have a shelf life. I don't want that. I want to be Robert De Niro. I want to be Pacino. I want to be Anthony Hopkins. They were never heartthrobs. I don't want to go down that route. So I was trying to steer away from that, but then, ended up being in magazines and all of this. And so Nigel Martin Smith, who was Take That's manager at the time, approached me and said, I'd like to manage you. And I said, thank you, I have an agent. And he was like, to be a singer. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. No, I can't sing. I can't play. No, thank you. And then Tom Watkins, E17's manager, same thing. I said, no, thank you. Not singer. I have no intention of it. Then Jonathan King approached us and said, this kid's going to be a star, to my mum and dad. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. I said, well, unless I can do it with my brother and my cousins. And so then we formed a band, a band that can't sing, can't write, can't play. That was ill-fated, lasted all of 5 minutes. So there was all this rumor and wooing of, I'm going to make a record and everything. And I was like, I don't want to, I can't sing. I had no desire to do it. And then I ended up getting a manager. I really could pick him, called Max Clifford.
Oh, right, okay.
The infamous Max Clifford, who, again, my dad was like, I don't trust this one bit, but if he's going, he's promising the sun, the moon, and the stars, he was going to get us a record deal. And I was like, so then he got me on Speedway motorcycles because he was promoting that and promoting me. And then I had a really bad accident where I nearly died. I hit a wall at about 50 miles an hour. I tried to jump off the back and I broke my leg clean in half. If I'd have hit the wall, I'd have been dead. I was in hospital for about 2 weeks. And while I was lying in hospital, I had this kind of some sort of epiphany where I was like, I could be dead. This could have all been over. And life's short. It could, it's fragile. And also I've left a soap. What am I going to do now? Nobody's going to hire me. I'm not credible. I have no future. I don't know what I'm going to do. And at this point, this wonderful man called Ian Allen came along, who's a friend to this day, a genuinely kind and decent, lovely man. Making me a bit emotional thinking about this stuff. And he kind of came along and said, listen, I understand you are disillusioned by all of this. But he said, I see something in you. He said, just give me a year. Give me a year and I'll make you the biggest star in the country. And I was like, well, it's unemployment in this hospital bed. And I was like, you know what? In my head, I was like, you know what? I'm smarter than all of you. This thing's not going to work at all. I'm going to flop like a giant whale and I'll take some money. I'll save the money and I'll use that while I'm unemployed so I can keep fighting for parts. And then there was like a bidding war between these record companies. I was like, you people really are dumb. There's talented musicians out there. You're going to give this to me. So I ended up signing to EMI Parlophone, the same label as the Beatles.
Right.
Which was, to me, I'm like, I'm signed to the same label as the Beatles. They're like, can you sing or write or play? Not a whit. But I'm signed to the same label as the Beatles, and that's all right with me. And so, I thought we'd make one record, it would flop, and that would be it. And then, 3 years later, I'm touring and playing Wembley and making substandard pop records. But it was a great education. I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do. I kind of wish, because now I'm very musically minded and I love playing and I love singing. I have no desire to play to an audience, other than my kids. But I love to play. I have a friend who's here at the moment, a musician who's out in the garden at the moment, who's here making an album. And I just love musicians and I love being around them and I love music. But it's something that I discovered much later in life. I wish I'd known. I wish I had the passion for music then that I have now.
Right. Yeah.
But it was the way it was supposed to be. It was just a strange detour. I sort of refer to it as I played a pop star for 3 years.
Right. Okay.
I took the role of the pop star and I played it as best I could.
Yeah. So then obviously you live in California now. When did you decide, right, that's where I'm going? I'm going now.
Well, like everything in my career, it looks from a distance as if I strategize. I mean, I always had in my head, I'm going to go to Hollywood, I'm going to go to Hollywood, I'm going to go to Hollywood. When I left Grange Hill, I had one brief moment where it very nearly happened. I auditioned for a movie called Matinee, which was directed by Joe Dante, who directed Gremlins and Inner Space and all these other big 80s blockbusters. And I got down to the final two, and I was flown out to Los Angeles, California, to go to Universal Studios to meet Joe Dante. And I was like, oh, it's happening. The dream is coming through. I knew I would. And then didn't get the part. The other kid got it. And that's when I referred to earlier about I've only ever once or twice thought, I'm going to give this up. It was fleeting. But the moment I didn't get that, it broke me. I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. To be so close to the dream. It was in touching distance. I was at Universal Studios. I was standing at the clock tower of Back to the Future.
Wow. And
I was just like, it has to be. How can it not be? And then when it didn't happen, I just thought, why would God do that? What kind of a woman are you? And then what I didn't realize was, there was some strange plan. And a few weeks later, I got an audition for EastEnders.
Right.
And then everything changed. And so America kind of came about after the pop thing had come to its natural end. I sort of said to the record company, look, this is not good. I'm not good. Why don't you let me make a record that I want to make rather than, and I made like a bad version of a Blur record, which did terribly. And that was it. The company dropped me. And then I just thought, okay, now I'm in trouble. So I've been in a soap, I've made bad pop records. What do I do now? Nobody's going to touch me with a barge pole. Because everything was about credibility then. There was credible people and then there were people like me. And now you can be on, no disrespect, but you could be on Hollyoaks or something and then end up in Game of Thrones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was not possible back in the day. You had to be credible or you weren't, or you were never going to get in the door. Now it's a kind of, if you can do it, you can do it. I think it's much better, and I'm glad for the young actors coming through now that the system's different. But then it had to be that way. And so after the pop and the Eastenders and everything else, I took a long, hard think about how am I going to do, what am I going to do? And I went and sat down with my agents and said, help me, guide me, what do I do? And they said, you need credibility. The only way to get credible is go do theatre, go do Shakespeare. My dad had always said to me, you're not a real actor until you've done Shakespeare. And I was like, yeah, well, I've been in quite a few shows and movies now. I think I am a real actor. He's like, have you done Shakespeare? And I was like, all right. So I got cast bizarrely, because at that point I was sort of, not well educated and not well read, and I could barely read out loud. I'm not joking, I was that bad. And I got cast as Romeo. And this was one of those times where it became a massive, this is the making or breaking of you.
Yeah.
It was so hard, and I was so out of my depth, and I was so terrified. So I just quit everything in my life. I almost built like a brick wall around myself and went, just this and this play. I do nothing else. I will crack this. I will absolutely, I got to knock it out of the park. I have to prove to myself, more than anybody else, I had to prove to myself that I could do it. Yeah. And I thought, if I can do this, I can do anything. If I can do 2.5 hours of Shakespeare on stage, having never done a play before, then I can really do anything. And that's what I did. I just devoted myself completely to it, and it was scary and it was terrifying and everything, but I got through it, and it changed me. It really changed me, and it changed my belief in what I could do and what I could achieve. And then I was like, okay, now I'm in charge of myself. Yeah. Now I can do whatever I do if I put my mind to it. But talent is nothing without hard work and discipline. It's just unless you can cut all the distractions out and push everything away and go, nothing else is going to work unless you get this right. So I just dedicated myself to it, and it actually went really well. And I even got good reviews from people like the Times and stuff, which was unheard of for an Eastender pop star to get a review for Shakespeare. Yeah, it just changed my belief in myself, and then I was like, okay, now I'm ready, world. And then as fate would have it, my agents introduced me to an American manager, and he said, "Do you want to audition in America?" And I was like, yes. And I started auditioning for Spider-Man and Panic Room and The Princess Diaries. And I screen tested for The Princess Diaries. The director, Gary Marshall, liked me. They flew me out to LA. While I was in LA, my manager shot me around to all of these studios, Warner Brothers. I mean, I was walking in the gates of Warner Brothers, which was like walking on the pitch at, for me, White Hart Lane or Goodison Park for you. It was just hallowed turf. This was it, And I was so overwhelmed and excited and enthusiastic. It must have just shown through, because I met this woman called Barbara Miller, who cast the cast of Friends, the cast of ER. And I was just, and she was like, I like you. You can meet the president. And I was like, the president? Oh, really? Come on now. And before I knew it, I was sitting in the president of Warner Brothers office. And I was just like, you're not really the president. I don't get to meet presidents. And I guess my silly awkwardness came off as charming, and he just said, you know what, we like you, so we're gonna do something here which we don't do very often. We're gonna give you some money so you don't go work for anybody else. How does that sound? I had like £1,500 in the bank to my life and no prospects, and then there was the president of Warner Brothers saying, come work here with us, and he said, what shows do you want to do? And I was like, Friends, thing. And he was like, get David Crane on the phone. Let's see if we can get a meeting for him over at Friends. And I was like, what? What? I knew it. I was over at the Friends offices, and I met what would be my future boss, David Crane. And I was very nearly on Friends, but Mark Cover was like, nah, we like this other kid more. So I missed my opportunity. But David Crane, the real creator runner, then hired me to be in the class some years later. So it was one of those just crazy. Yeah. Now going through it all, because I obviously don't go through my own resume too often, but it's just mad. It's just a series of very, very lucky events.
Yeah, I mean, like you've just said about your resume there. So obviously you did the Class, and then the Dukes, and then Meet the Spartans, which is the parody of 300. So you were basically playing
Jerry Butler, Leonidas.
Yeah, Jerry Butler, yeah. But I mean, what was that like doing that one? I mean, that must have been something else, doing a parody. Like,
horrible. It was horrible because I had to get in. Like Jerry's, I know Jerry's a friend and a fantastic guy, lovely guy. He trained for 6 months to get in shape.
Right, okay.
I had 4 weeks. So I was on no alcohol, no sugar, no fat, just working out for 2 hours in the morning, working out for 2 hours in the afternoon. Horrible diet, 7 days a week. It was just brutal. It was just really brutal. But it was my first 3-picture deal. And I thought, okay, I'll make this stupid movie, and then, sorry, I shouldn't say that. I'll make this silly movie, and then it'll lead to the movie that I want to make, and so on and so forth. But it just didn't really transpire that way. And, I had mixed feelings about it. But I've had a friend of mine said to me, don't speak ill of it, because there's a lot of people out there that like it. And when you speak ill of your own work, you're putting down their opinion of it. And I thought that's very true.
Yeah.
But, I just always wanted to make The Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon and Heat, like that. So it wasn't really where I wanted to go, but it was my first studio picture, and I wanted to just get cracking.
As you said before, you just wanted to work, didn't you? So
I made a deal with God. I was like, just want to work. If you didn't say what kind of work, you just said work. I should have put a stipulation. Just good work. Good work.
And obviously since then, you've done other things, like Death in Paradise and Scott and Bailey. But then, in my eyes, the next big thing that you did was Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, that changed the game.
Because I love Once Upon a Time, and when I was telling people about the premise behind Once Upon a Time, it sounds like it should be a kids program.
Yeah, well, sort of. Well, because it's taking children's fairy tales and then spinning it out. So I remember I met the showrunner on the pilot, and I just read a whole bunch of pilots that year, and everything was the same, and this thing was very different. And I said to him, regardless of whether you hire me or not, you're either going to have an enormous hit on your hands, or the studio won't know what to do with this, and they won't know how to make it. And obviously it was the former rather than the latter. And then they were interested in me to play a character, and I got another offer, which was unusual at the time, to do a sitcom. Right. And I'd done a bunch of sitcoms already, and I like sitcoms, and they're fun and they're easy, and I like the guy who's running, and they just offered me this show. So I went, I'll take that rather than fishing for this. And then that show didn't go, and then Once Upon a Time became this giant global hit, and I was like, oh God, Dick, just fuck that up. But then, again, as fate would have it, the right role for me came along. In fact, I'd auditioned for one role, and then that had happened. Then there was another role. I think I auditioned on tape for Captain Hook, and my friend Colin ended up getting it right. He was a great Captain Hook. And then I think it was like a fax or an email came through, and my wife, I was painting my kitchen. I was in here painting the kitchen. And my wife said, you got an audition for Once Upon a Time? I went, nah, not going in for that. Nah, I don't feel like being rejected today. No, I'm in charge of my paint. My paint can't reject me. I was obviously feeling a little bit like, I was sort of not feeling great. And she was like, it's for Robin Hood. And I was like, she went, and my wife she's not big on compliments and stuff. She just was very no bullshit. And she was like, I can see you as Robin Hood. And I was like, I can see me as Robin Hood. Right, brush down, clean up. I was like, right, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do it exactly as I want to do it. No bullshit. All right, this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to do that, and you're going to hand me that, and I'm going to do this. No, all right, got it. Mic drop. Boom. See you. I'll never see these people again. And then the phone call. They wanted to do it, and I was like, God. Sometimes things just happen that are very unexpected.
Yeah, brilliant.
And that really did. It changed a lot. It changed our lives, that one.
Okay, so obviously you have done a lot of stuff, and you've mentioned some of the people that you've worked with, but I have to ask you this question. Do you ever get starstruck?
God, yeah, of course. I mean, it changes, like when I first moved to America, I remember the first American famous person I saw. I came out of a meeting and I said to my manager, who became a really close friend, I was like, you'll never guess who I just saw. Tori Spelling. And he was like, Now, you know, when you've been here for a while, you see everybody. And he was very sweet. He didn't make me go, Tory spelling. Who gives a shit about Tory spelling? Yeah. But yeah, I was really, you know, I was enamored by American stars. But then that dissipates quite quickly. But I think the last time that I got genuinely, like, I couldn't talk, like I just lost my shit, was we went to Old Cheller, which was the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney, you know, like just legends. And a friend of mine is a musician. Oh, and the Who. So a friend of mine knew somebody from the Who, and not the band, but like, you know, part of their team. So we had backstage passes and everything. And my mate from Dublin and I are just crazy Beatles fans. And so the big deal was obviously McCartney. McCartney's good. So all day we'd be getting a drink. Sean, it's McCartney. Oh, you know, oh, it's McCartney. You know, and it got a bit tired. You know, by the end of the day, so it's a bit played now. We're backstage, and I think I was looking at my phone or something, and my mate Andy hits me. He goes, Sean, McCartney. And I was like, yeah, Andy, McCartney. He goes, no, fucking hit me. Like, and I was like, and as I look up, Paul's walking by with a guitar slung over his shoulder. Just, you know, being Paul, like, you know, walking to the stage. And I was like, oh my God. I just kind of, I couldn't quite, because my entire life they have been playing in the background. And so the Beatles are just such an enormous part of my life and my family's life. But all of my family are huge Beatles fans. I mean, they are bigger than Jesus. It's fair to say. And so, you know, seeing someone like that, I think the first time I saw Jack Nicholson, I was like, Jesus, that's Jack. Yeah. Big Jack. You know, it only happens very, very rarely. The first time I met Leonardo DiCaprio, I was pretty starstruck, because I was like, shit, man, you're living the career that I've got.
Right.
But he's brilliant. I mean, he's an absolutely brilliant actor. So there's a couple of people that every now and then. Oh, Tom Hanks was the other one. Like the first time I met Tom Hanks, I was just like, I couldn't talk properly, because, you know, he's Tom Hanks. I mean, he's about as big and as good as it gets. And he's also was actually really, really lovely, because I've done this movie with Martin Short, and Martin's really good friends with Tom. And then we were at Martin's Christmas party, and this Christmas party, that was one of the times when my head sort of blew clean off.
Right, okay.
Martin Short's Christmas party is just, it might as well be the Academy Awards. There's Kurt and Goldie Hawn, and there's Steve Martin, and there's Spielberg, and I was there with Christina Applegate, who's my friend who had done this movie, and I was just going, oh my God, and I was like, is this normal? And she was like, no, this is crazy, even by her standards. Ever. She was like, no, this is batshit crazy. I remember I was living down at the beach at the time, and the next day I was so starstruck, because it was so big and it was so all at once. I had to go and sit on the beach and just go, oh my God, I talked to Steve Martin. I made Kurt Russell laugh. Like, it was was like all my childhood dreams just got packed into sort of 3 hours. Yeah. And it blew my head clean off. So but I think that was the last time that it was like a thunderbolt, you know. But because I love actors and I love musicians and stuff, you know, but footballers are a funny one. Do you know what I mean? Because I know a couple of footballers, and you know, this sounds very show busy and name dropping, but Rod Stewart's got a football pitch up at his house, and so there's a bunch of us that play at Rod Stewart's house, which sounds crazy. But, you know, like Robbie Keane came up there and played football, and I was like, playing football with Robbie Keane, you know, I'm an island, you know, it's my jam. Yeah. And again, couldn't have been nicer, and just so humble and down to earth. So yeah, I still get geeked out, and I think it'd be a shame if you lose that. You know, if you're like, oh, it doesn't really matter, then the magic's lost on.
Yeah, you know? definitely. And then, in the same sort of vein, anyone who follows you on social media will know that you famously had a feud with William Shatner, and I'm saying feud very loosely there, but I loved that. I thought that was brilliant. Like,
me and Big Billy Shatz have gone toe to toe a couple of times. He started it. He started it, coming after me. I was like, oi, back up, Captain Kirk. I didn't want this fight, but you're an old man. You're out of shape. But he, funnily enough, I didn't understand it at first. And, he's giving me a bit of grief. So I gave him a bit back because, I was raised, it doesn't matter who they are. They come for you, you hit them back. And then I was getting a lot of abuse online from sort of fans of the show that didn't want me with the fictional girlfriend. I just stupid.
Right, okay.
And he private messaged me and said, "You okay?" And I was like, I said to my wife, "William Shatner's messaging me. Is this weird?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay, William Shatner. Are you okay?" And he's like, "Look, I see you getting a lot of grief." And I said, "Well, yeah, I think I'm going to quit this social media thing. It's not for me. It's like I grew up. You're not supposed to talk to your stars and stuff. There's supposed to be a distance between us." I said, "I'm going to quit this stuff anyway." And he went, "Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't let them, because if they do that, they'll have won. They'll have bullied you off it." He said, "I don't like bullies." And I was like, "I don't like bullies either. You're right. Fuck them. Yeah, I'll just block and report and I'll sort of." So he was kind of really cool with me. And then we kind of sort of struck up a bit of a friendship, but then still kept our public feud, because I still public. But then he kind of sent me a message saying, "Merry Christmas, kiddo," and stuff. And I was like, "Captain Cook, wishing me Merry Christmas." So yeah, it was a weird one, and I do remind myself that these are not normal things, and I feel very lucky and privileged that I managed to live that dream that I was kind of praying for.
Okay, now I will have some questions about Grange Hill in a moment, but I just want to talk to you about the Players' Conservatory, because I know that's something that you're obviously you're really involved with, really passionate about. So if you can just let us know sort of what that is.
Well, it's something that, because I've come from a family of teachers, obviously, and as I mentioned, and I've been thinking about starting, because a lot of people have said, "How do you start? What do you do? How do you?" And I didn't know, because I never trained as a youngster, and I used to have a lot of people saying, "How do you get into it? How do you do it?" And I was like, I don't really. I had my own route. It was haphazard and fluke, and I thought I'd love to, because I've been very fortunate. I'd love to give something back and to just, I mean, who am I to be teaching acting? I'm no Al Pacino or Anthony Hopkins, but I picked up a few things along the way, and maybe I can be of some help to somebody. So I thought maybe I'll teach 5, 6 people in a class. And then COVID hit, and then we were all locked down. And I'm a work-driven person. I want to do stuff. I can't just sit around watching TV, and I need to be functioning and doing something. And I thought, maybe I'll teach, but then we couldn't teach because we were in lockdown and all of that. And my brother came to stay during COVID, and he was teaching Irish dancing over Zoom. And I was like, "You can do that over Zoom? Okay. Yeah. Maybe I could teach acting over Zoom." I don't know how, or I don't know where I'd start. But then that was it. I said to my wife, "Let's do this. Let's see if we can do this." And we started the school, and we're almost 2 years old in a couple of days, a couple of weeks. I forget exactly when it was. And in a few weeks, we're going to have our first in-person workshop. We've got 30 people coming from all over the world, and we're going to put on a version of Clue, the farcical play. And it's just been amazing. I mean, it's been a real. I didn't realize that I'd get so much out of it. I didn't realize that I would build something that would be so rewarding for me. And it's been, what's really lovely is, I mean, a lot of people that have joined are Once Upon a Time fans, and some of them are very shy and are awkward and don't feel that they can do public speaking. And I just said, look, it doesn't matter whether you want to be a professional actor or not, but if you have a problem with confidence, if you have a problem with public speaking, I can help you. And I felt very confident that I can do that. And just by a series of giving them tasks, letting them meet that task and encouragement. And also, like I said, I don't like bullies. I said, in our school, we don't have any treating people badly. There's no doing anybody down. Constructive criticism, fine, but it's got to be constructive. And I've seen a lot of my students have gone from being very, very quiet, awkward in their own skin, to now they're up there belting it out. And it just, makes me very proud.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we are coming to the end, and I will, as I say, I always end with asking you just a few Grange Hill related questions, but I'm going to put an extra one in that I don't normally put in with other people. Your final scene in Grange Hill was Tegs trying to get into a party, and he couldn't because he looked too young to get in. Right. Now, I'm going to be honest, Sean. I had that all my life. You know what I mean? Even when I was 18 and I had ID, people didn't believe it. I mean, to look at me now, you'd never believe that. But anyway, so Tegs goes to give Justine a hug or a kiss, and he stops and walks off. And Justine runs after him, but we don't see what happens. What do you think happened?
Do you know what? I completely forgotten that scene. I'd forgotten that happened. Oh, that's so sad. I didn't realise that it was how it ended. I had absolutely no memory of that.
Yeah, and because he was moving to Germany, wasn't he?
I remember that. I remember that
my
family was moving to Germany, which is bizarre. But, why not Ireland or something easier?
We never saw what happened.
The romantic in me would like to think that she gave him a hug and probably a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah.
But I think that's all it was. I think there was something kind of beautiful about it being an unrequited love story that he never. It's not Hollywood, you know. You know, you don't always get what.
I mean, he does. Tegs does say, "I never stopped liking you." Well, obviously, he realised that they had sort of grown apart a little bit. The fact that he still looked like he was 10, and she was looking like an 18-year-old girl. Like, so, okay, all right then. So recently, there's been talk of a Grange Hill movie in the works. Phil Redmond is on board, and the script is getting written. If you were asked, would we see a return of Tegs?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think I will be asked, and I don't even know how that. It would be so bizarre to play Tegs now, 40, 30 years later or something. But I think because Grange Hill really was, even though I'd done movies and a few things before it, I think Grange Hill was really the start. When I think of the start of my professional career, really, to learn my trade. And so I'll always be so grateful to Grange Hill and to everything that I learned. And who am I to sort of go, no, I'm too fancy now to do that. So, I think I would. I think I would just out of respect and gratitude, you know.
Brilliant.
I don't know if I will be asked. Nobody's contacted me, so I don't think that's on the card. But yeah, it would be weird. It would be very weird. I have no idea how I would play Tegs now, because I'm 46 and 3 kids, and so it would be strange. But yeah, I think I would always. I generally have a policy about not going back to shows once I've left them. I don't know where that came from, but I've only done it once, and it was once upon a time, and I did it really, if I'm being honest, because the fans of the show were so good to me, and they were so not all of them, some of them hated me, but the fans of the show really were extraordinary to me. And that storyline, a lot of people felt that Robin was killed when he shouldn't have been, and it left that another unrequited love story which never got its closure. And so I wanted to give the audience what they wanted. But generally, as a rule, once I've left the show, I kind of think I've done that, played that. I don't really want to go back. Yeah. But going back to visit Tegs 30 odd years later would sort of bizarre. So
okay then. So other than Tegs, who was your favourite character in Grange Hill?
Robbie and Ziggy.
Right. Brilliant. And yeah, really cool. So if you couldn't have played Tegs, what other character would you have liked to have played? Would you have wanted to have played Robbie or Ziggy?
Roland.
Ah, right, okay.
I loved Roland, and I loved the girl that would be like, Roland.
Yeah.
Roland. I just something about those two that I just love them. Or Mr. Bronson.
Yeah.
Mr. Bronson was such a great character. Danny Kendall was another great one.
Yeah.
I thought he was such an amazing character, and he was a lovely guy as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Grange Hill, they did create some really good characters.
Yeah. Okay, kind of in that vein. On my last question is, why do you think then there is still such affection for Grange Hill?
Well, because it's sort of, it's part of our childhood, you know. I mean, it was such a big TV. The world is so different. There's no show in the world. There's no kid show in the world that gets 9 million people watching it twice a week. In fact, I mean, my friend Alton was saying the other day, I miss the days when we were all watching the same thing. Right now we have the beauty of choice, but sometimes choice is too much. And back in the day, I was saying, like, on a Thursday night, it was Top of the Pops, EastEnders, and Tomorrow's World. Or, like, there were certain days where TV was like, you didn't want to miss TV. And Grange Hill was a water cooler show. I mean, everybody was watching it, everybody was talking about it, and it just was a big, big part of growing up in Britain in the 70s, and the 80s, and the 90s. And I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again, because now with so much choice, you'll never get that many people watching one thing unless it becomes a giant hit like a Game of Thrones or Stranger Things or something like that. But even then, this was not pay-per-view TV. This was just everybody tuning in, probably because there was nothing else on, shite on the other channels. But it was also a well-made TV show and had a social conscience, and I think it was really informative. I mean, look, they ended up going to the White House and having an anti-drugs campaign, anti-Reagan. So that's not usual. It was a very it's on my resume that I got to say I went to Grange Hill. Yeah,
brilliant. Well, Sean, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're a busy man, so it's great that you've been able to come on and share your experience.
I feel like I've just done This Is Your Life. I feel like things that I haven't really thought about for 20 years.
Well, I haven't got a big red book for you. I apologise there, but
no worries. But it's a pleasure talking to you, Neil, and I love what you're doing with the site and everything. So keep it up. And if any of my old Grange Hill buddies like Rachel or Paul, I think it's Paul Paris now, if they get in contact, please tell them to send me a message, because I'd love to catch up with someone.
I will do, definitely. Brilliant. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming on. And for anyone who's listening, I'll speak to you next time. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, Neil. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.